stage at GameSpot. It's E3 Day 2. I'm your host, John Davison, and with me is the freshly crowned CEO of THQ, Jason Rubin. Oh, President, I'm sorry.
Correct.
President.
Brian is still the CEO.
Yeah?
Yes.
So you've been on the job, what, a week, 2 weeks now?
Today's my 7th morning. I think actually it's afternoon, so it's my 7th afternoon. That's correct.
So it's been kind of crazy, huh?
It is. I don't know that starting right before E3 was the smartest thing to do, but here I am.
So just for people, because you've been kind of out of the sort of core games industry for a while.
Right.
So you formed Naughty Dog. Did you do anything before that?
No, when I formed Naughty Dog, I was 15. So before that, I was mowing lawns. I did.
Okay, you did that.
And, there wasn't a lot of work before that. No. Yeah, we started, Andy and I, my partner, at Naughty Dog when we were 15 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Way of the Warrior.
There were games before that, but forget them, right? Way of the Warrior, then Crash, then Jack.
Yeah.
Then I left in 2004 after selling. We sold the company in 2001 to Sony.
Yeah.
Did Jack with Sony. I left the company to Evan and Stephen White.
Yeah.
Stephen left, Christoph and Evan are now reigning over at Naughty Dog, killing it on Uncharted and of course The Last of Us.
Yeah. And then you went off and you did a video, it was an online video thing you did, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I did behind the scenes, consulting. I tried to acquire a couple of game companies. They didn't happen at the time, so a lot of time, not a lot to show for it. I also started something called Flector, which was a media mashup site that I worked on for a year with Andy again and Jason K, who's now with me at THQ. We sold that to Fox. Got merged into MySpace, so I worked at MySpace for a year. We started a casual games company just to see how that worked. Yeah. One of our titles is that EA is putting out, so I got to see the casual world. It's called Snood. It's for iPhone. Didn't create it, but we licensed it and put it out, so I know a lot about mobile industry. Behind the scenes, I worked on social space, Facebook games, so I know a lot about that. Tried to acquire another large game company. That didn't happen. Right. So always games. Yeah. But just not a lot public about games. And then this opportunity came up, and I guess I'm crazy, so I took it.
So what attracted you about it?
Brian asked me to go and look at the projects that were in the works and meet the teams and to give him some advice, because obviously THQ has had some rough times. Yeah. So as a consultant, I went around actually looking at the teams. Saw some amazing teams, huge amount of potential. I know from making games for Sony that in the right environment, a talented team can make a great game. I also know from having worked with an earlier publisher that didn't publish our games, but licensed them, that under bad circumstances, it's extremely hard to make good games for a developer. Yeah. It's hard to make games, period, but throw a bad situation around it, and it becomes impossible. So the fundamental talent is there. Right. Additionally, there are a lot of really good products that third parties are working on for THQ right now. Yeah. So I saw that, I came back and I said, you've got a great platform. I think there's a lot going on at THQ. I think the teams have an incredible amount of capability. They need fostering, they need a good environment. Yeah. If you can get that right, you've got something going. And he said, so come do it. Yeah. So I'm here.
I mean, I think from a statement of intent, I mean, someone with a creative background running the day-to-day is like a big statement to the people working there. I mean, they didn't bring in someone with sort of an investment background, which tends to happen in a lot of big companies.
That's right. And it's been very well received by the teams. You know, they're very excited about the fact that I don't plan on going in and designing their games. I've done that. They're good designers, but they know that when they say, here's what we need for a budget, or here's how much time we need, or here's the problem, or here's what we did, that I'll respect it, understand it, and be able to work with it. And I think THQ's, it's been a little lacking. Yeah. So I'll be able to do that.
So I mean, one of the benefits of stepping outside the sort of day-to-day kind of grind of the industry is you get a much better perspective on what's needed. So when you were thinking about going to THQ and you were looking at like the whole industry right now, were there some sort of themes that you were like, why isn't anybody doing this?
Exactly, and that is exactly the great fundamentals, great projects right now. It's a ship, you can't steer it that quickly. I'm excited about where the ship's going in the near term, but if I can take control of that ship, what I see from having worked in mobile and social and other spaces about where the industry's going makes me say, if I could take the ship there, we'll be in paradise. So that's exactly what the long-term goal is to find the future for this company. And I think if your head's down in the core game space, as I was when I was at Naughty Dog, you tend to just put on the blinders to what you're doing, and you're worried about your direct competitor, or you're worried about the next, the next this or the next that. You're not worried about what else is going on in the industry. And I've had the luxury of exploring these other businesses and seeing what's great there. I mean, there are amazing things that were learned at Zynga and at other companies in social. Now, you can't take a game and stop it every 5 seconds for them to put in another quarter effectively in our games.
Right.
So there's a lot of stuff that's completely useless that Zynga's learned, but there are fundamental things that they've learned about what makes things fun that can be brought back. Ditto mobile. So taking some of those learnings and saying, how can I bring this back into core games is, from a future standpoint, what I think the opportunity is.
Yeah. So, I mean, THQ for a long time have relied on relationships with Disney and Nickelodeon, and there's a lot of licensed properties.
Correct.
A lot of that stuff, are you sort of moving away from that and doubling down on original IP?
Correct.
Yeah.
There were a lot of good businesses in games 5 years ago. One of those was being in kids games, licensed kids games. THQ had humongous years.
Yeah.
Most people say, you got in that business, why'd you do that? But if you go back and you look at THQ's quarters a few years ago, they were huge. I mean, they were selling games left and right. Then out came mobile. Again, if you're out of the industry, you might have seen this coming. They didn't. Mobile came out, and a kid says, 99-cent game, $60 game, I can't really tell the difference. It's all flashy, and I love it. Whereas a core gamer goes, 99-cent game, core gaming experience, not even close, right? Core gaming experience is what I'm interested in. So the core gaming audience was not distracted by mobile and social, but the children's licensed audience was completely distracted, and that caused a huge amount of trouble for THQ. So THQ decided, realizing this, perhaps too late, that they needed to change and get into the core business, started to do that. The problem was, by the time they did that, the massive organizations that had been formed around humongous AAA titles were very hard to copy and very hard to catch up with. So THQ got into this kind of one step behind process, and then there were some other mistakes that THQ's already mentioned, UDraw, MMOG, it all just didn't come together very well.
So
that's all behind them now.
Saints Row is kind of the exception, right?
Of course, they're a good team. That's the point. They're very good teams. The Darksiders team is an excellent team. It needs nurturing. But Vigil's great. Relic created the highest rated first-person shooter. I'm sorry, not real-time strategy game. 7 days on the job, so I'm highest rated in the history of RTSs. Why they didn't sequelize that until now, I have no idea. That's not. But that team is still there, and they're still capable of creating that title. And as it turns out, those titles, which have kind of had a little bit of a hard time because of the massive first-person shooters, massive GTA-type games, now have an opportunity to come back, I think, in the future. There are great teams. We have Patrice Desilets, the creator of Assassin's Creed, is working in Montreal on a title. So there's good stuff going on. We have Homefront being done by the Crytek team in Nottingham. There's great stuff out there. So, and stuff that hasn't been announced. So that's what got me excited. Of course, I've stepped into this, and it's been a little like they're beating up on the kid. There's like a lot of punching of the kids, so switch out, and I'm the new kid, and I'm like, this isn't my fault.
Well, it's a nice segue into punching.
Yeah.
When I tweeted earlier on that you were coming on, and there was this sort of overwhelming of way, well, you got to ask him about all that UFC stuff.
Right.
So you must have, you probably, you came in after that had all gone down, presumably.
Well, I was aware of the UFC transaction for a couple of months before I started, and I was for it for reasons of our future. Having said that, and I've said this multiple times, laying off a team, laying off anybody is an extremely hard thing to do. What shocked me is that, and again, it's like you're beating up. People don't know when to stop beating up. People are still seeing the downward trajectory. If I was a journalist, I'd want to pick the bottom. I'd want to be the first one to look for the bottom as opposed to still pounding. And in this case, this didn't happen to THQ. THQ actively worked on getting this done from a financial standpoint, and I would love for the journalists to call the team and ask them, how are you treated? But no one did that. They just, it's clearly they were trying to, it's not the case. I had a long meeting yesterday with the lead of the San Diego team. They're great people, they're incredibly talented. We're actively working on finding them something to do. They're still all employed by THQ as of today. Obviously that it's going to change if we can't find them something to do, but we're actively looking for a strong team to do something. And at the same time, from the outside, there's all these stones coming in.
Yeah.
And the odd thing is, people think that they're helping the team by doing this. They're defending them. Actually, when you're throwing all this derision on companies, it's the developers inside that feel that more than anybody else.
Right.
So, you know, it is what it is, but it's a little hard for me to understand.
Right. So 7 days in, you come to E3. What's caught your eye here?
Well, I've been doing a lot of meetings because obviously I'm catching up with my internal company as well as everybody that needs to know where the company's going in the future. So I haven't walked around that much, but I did go to the Xbox. I have walked around, but not that much. Halo looked amazing. Yeah. Clearly. There's a lot of great stuff. You know, it's amazing what's happened to graphics since I started in the business in '85. But it's even amazing what's happened since the first 3D games became prominent with Crash. It's just, we struggled so hard to get Forest. And the idea was, could you really get a forest that looked like a forest ever, right? How is this going to happen? I mean, everybody knew it would happen, but the fact that there's a game playing right behind us. The forests are unbelievable now, and that's hard. Yeah. And the industry's done it.
I can remember back in probably the early PS2 days where everyone would be like, we're never going to be able to do hair.
Yeah, right.
That's the one thing that's never going to happen.
Hair, right, and hair it's still not there, but it's getting closer. And it's amazing what's happened to the process. It's amazing what has happened with the talent in the industry and what they've been able to do. Absolutely, and gameplay too. And the gameplay's improved a lot too. It's amazing stuff out there, and the RPG elements coming into other games. I think it's great. I'd love to go back and put RPG elements into a character action game, but character action games have kind of had their time. Yeah. But it would have made them so much better. Why didn't we think of that? Right.
What do you make of the Wii U? You a fan?
To be honest with you, I haven't spent enough time looking at the Wii U to make a judgment, so I'm going to withhold my judgment on that. Yeah. As I was busy working behind the scenes on the business, I wasn't looking so much as at next generation hardware like the Wii U, so I don't want to comment because I haven't really looked at it.
So you mentioned Relic. I mean, they've always been really strong on PC. You see a huge opportunity there?
I do. Yeah. I do. I mean, that team, again, needs nurturing, and I don't think they've had that for a long time. They've kind of been dealing with a firefight. But they're great at RTSs. And an RTS is a great thing to monetize through any one of them in a number of ways. And again, the RTS has kind of been stagnant. There's a lot of things that can be brought to them from mobile and social that would make an RTS that much more compelling. Yeah. I'd love to work on that with the guys.
I think we've reached a point. There are a number of games that I think have become so big and so defining for some of these genres that, everyone's focused on StarCraft 2. It's the dominant pro gaming game. It's like it's shaping the way people think about that. But there's a lot that we've not seen. I mean, back when I was at Ziff Davis, we had Computer Gaming World, and we would put company heroes and stuff on the cover, and that was as much about telling a story through a different gameplay mechanic. And I think there's a lot that can be done there. And Homeworld, of course. Everyone a big fan of that. So I think there's a lot of potential in that genre. We're seeing here, I think, some people start to go back to some of those older ideas from the mid-90s and be like, well, maybe we can start nudging things that way again.
The business has kind of put itself in a position where only the biggest, baddest, highest budget, highest marketing budget games have done well for the last few years. And that's led to a lot of teams racing to be the biggest, baddest, highest budget. And I think that what you'll see in the next few years, and this is again a fundamental reason why I think THQ is interesting, that in the next few years you'll see a lot of backfill in between casual, which we have no interest in making, and $120 million games, which we're also not going to be making. There's a middle space that's kind of empty right now, and you will see gamers finding entertainment there, and you will see gamers interested in it. Perfect example is League of Legends. Yeah. Graphically, that doesn't compete with the next GTA or Assassin's Creed 3 or any one of these fantastic, massive budget games. Not even close, but there's a lot of people spending a lot of time playing that game. And I think that kind of game has a place in the industry. It all doesn't have... By the way, I have nothing against massive games. I play them, I love them. They'll be here, they're going to be here, they're going to get bigger, they're going to get more massive. I just think that there's a diversity that can come back into the industry and will come back into the industry in the next few years, and I'd like to help with that.
So is that something that you're seeing in the teams that you've inherited, that there's that feeling of being overwhelmed by this pressure that they just can't go up against?
Some of them can't, and again, it's, you could say to a guy, you are one of the best drivers in the world. You have to go out and do Formula One. Here's your Yugo. How are they going to do it, right? It's just, there are some things you can't do, and the teams, I think, have done a very good job overcoming what barriers were put in front of them, and I'd like to remove barriers, but one thing I can't do at THQ is suddenly drop $120, $140 million and 600 people on a project, so we're not going to try.
Right. So is the mobile space something, I mean, you've dabbled in it, not something that you want to go there?
I think mobile space is a fantastic business. I think social space, fantastic business. It's not for us.
Right.
Not for us. Too low a barrier of entry to make the games, too high a barrier of entry based on the network effect of having significant amounts of users to push your content to.
Yeah.
It's just not a business you can enter casually with a big company. It's fine for small guys trying to break out. It's great for the big guys that have already established themselves. Not a business you want to move into with an organization trying to get in there. Not great.
Yeah.
So we won't do it.
Are you going to continue to work with third-party developers? Or is it going to become more of a...
With third parties, you mean? Like,
yeah.
Yeah, of course. If we see something we like and we want to do it, we absolutely will. Having said that, we have a great slate right now, and I think we're going to stick to our slate. We're not going to expand into our cash flow. We're going to keep cash on the side, and we're going to make sure that we can make the best possible games. I'd rather double down on a game with promise than start something else and hedge my bet.
Yeah. I mean, Darksiders is a good example of that. So what's the Darksiders IP? You guys are like really involved with that, right?
Well, we're on our second title.
Yeah.
I'm 7 days into the job. I love the IP. I've worked with the lead designer at Vigil outside of, he did a comic book, the main characters to a comic book that I created. He designed them. Yeah, totally outside of all of this years ago.
Yeah.
So I love his work, clearly. I don't know. Going down to visit the team in a week and a half.
Were you working on comic books?
I did 2 comic series. One of them is almost completed.
Yeah.
The 6th book is done, but I don't know why. Maybe, but I haven't seen it come out on digital yet.
Yeah.
That one was mostly digital. The previous one I did about 2-3 years ago with Aspen Comics, and then re-released the trade paperback with Top Cow. I was the writer-creator.
Oh, cool. Who was the artist? Who did you work with?
Francis Manipul and Joel Gomez tag teamed on Iron Saint, which was the first one, and the second one was called Mysterious Ways, and that was Tyler Kirkham.
So was that something you'd always wanted to do growing up, or?
Yeah, it was. I love comics growing up.
Yeah.
And it was something. The nice thing about comics is a very small team. It's very much done like we did Crash Bandicoot. It takes like 6-8 people to do a book.
Yeah.
And everybody talks to everybody, and everybody has a specific thing they do. You don't have 50 animators working on the main character. It's like a very small, concise, very low-tech business.
Yeah.
And it was just a nice thing to do on the side. And the books were very successful. I loved it. It was great. But it's mostly a hobby.
It's been interesting. There's been a few people on here that we've talked to this week where. So we had Tim Schafer on earlier on,
right?
And he was talking about the sort of Kickstarter model and the creative freedom and just answering directly to the audience. And then we had Jonathan Mack on talking about. We ended up talking about board games. I think we're starting to see people really want to step away from the here's the big check, go make something that sells millions.
Well, yes, and I think some of us have kind of taken some time off from the industry because being a developer is hard.
Yeah.
And there's specifically times of the year where I don't want to meet with my developer friends because I don't want to look into their eyes and see the fear, right? The last 3 months before final are miserable.
Yeah.
And if you have that too many times in a row, it can burn you out. And it burnt me out. That's why I took a step back. Now I'm tan, rested, and ready, and I want to come back and do something special in the industry. So absolutely, people are doing other things, and I think Kickstarter's great.
Yeah.
The thing about Kickstarters is it's not likely to fund a $20 to $30 million game anytime soon.
Right.
That's a lot of people supporting you.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
I really
Glad
appreciate
to be
it.
here.
I appreciate you're very busy in your first week.
That's all right. That's all right. It was great to come.
We're giving out everyone's Twitter. Are you active on Twitter?
Yes, Jason_Rubin.
Jason_Rubin.
Hit me up. Hit me up.
So there, follow Jason on Twitter. You can follow me, JWH Davison. We will be back in 5 minutes with Sundance from MLG. with Thresh, an ex-Quake pro, and Tom Taylor, a Halo professional gamer. We're going to talk some professional gaming. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
No music, so we're still on.
I think we're still on.
Ask me another question. What have you seen that you really like?
I really like that Lego City
the Lego
cover thing.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
They showed it at the Wii conference.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 kids, 7 and 8.
So you're hot on the Wii. You like the Wii.
I think so. But I've been really hot on the Lego games since the early days.
At 7 and 8, do they discern? I mean, some are gamers, but do they discern the difference between here's a great game on mobile and here's a great game on console, or to them is it all entertainment?
It's all entertainment.
That's what happened.
Yeah, and it was interesting. A couple of years ago, we were on vacation, and it was when the iPad had first come out. We had the iPad, we had the DS, and they were just drawn to the iPad. And it's like now they have game time that we restrict their game time, and they're just drawn to the iPad because it's tactile and it's, you know, there's something really immediate about it, and they have no concept of the difference between a gamer's game and a mobile game. It's
That's right.
I just want to play this, you know?
That's right. And you know, you look at the quote-unquote decline of the industry over the last few years. First of all, they're not tracking Steam, and they're not tracking, you know, League of Legends, and they're not tracking the other, what I would consider core games.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure the numbers are relevant. But there is a significant drop-off of children's titles in the industry. I wonder if you went back and you stripped that out, whether or not the industry's gotten bigger or smaller. And I would guess that it's either the same or it's grown.
Yeah.
It's just that we've lost that kind of children's title.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen a lot of people that seem to have headed in that way, or not thinking about it as children, but, you know, wanting to go and, you know, we're all getting older, particularly those of us that have been in the industry. I mean, even since you were 15, and it changes your perspective on everything particularly when you have kids. You got married, you don't have kids. Right?
I have married, I have no kids.
But it does make you look at things very differently, and when you can see something through their eyes, their idea of what is a quality thing is very, very different, and they don't crave the structure that we necessarily do.
It'll be interesting to see if when they grow up, though, they start.
Yeah.
You know, at 12 or 14, you have a son, you said? One son, one daughter?
Two sons, 7 and 8.
I would imagine when they're 12 to 14, if they become gamers, they'll start saying, you know, that's a little shallow for me, or that's not deep enough for me.
Yeah. Well,
we'll see.
My oldest has become a real jock. I have no idea how I raised a jock, but he's like into sports, and I think the structure that he's craving is coming from
the sports,
from baseball and like stats and structure.
I played a lot of sports when I was a kid. I was big into soccer, and then I was young enough that computers came out, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't as serious. It was like, whoa, an Apple II, that's cool. It's a new thing. And when I got on the computer, that was the end. That was it for sports. The sports just stopped all of a sudden.
All right, well, we're gonna wrap this up and see if I'm not sure where I'm confused. Marco, are you out there? Hey, Angela, can you poke your head around through there as I'm instructing you live what to do and see if they're Hey.
There we go, there's some Darksiders.
No worries, Marco. Were we still on?
Yeah, we're still on.
Okay. We're gonna wrap it up then.
We're on live still?
We're live. No, don't worry about it. I'll just do the out. There's your proof that this is live. All right, we'll be back in 5 minutes with Sundance, T-Squared, and Thresh. We're going to talk about pro gaming. Thank you to Jason Rubin. Thanks a lot.